Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. If you are new to the channel, welcome. If you have already subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Today I will be talking about my Panasonic G9 as to why I chose this instead of the GH5 as my main camera for filming weddings, as well as show you my cinematic settings and explain why I have those settings as well. Maybe some of you already know that my main bread and butter is wedding videography. I love filming weddings and I'm so passionate about it. And I am mostly a solo shooter. Basically, 95% of my weddings were filmed by yours truly. And the sample videos that you've seen earlier were filmed using my G9 in 4K 24p and 4K 60p. I love it so much that I won't be replacing this G9 anytime soon. I really love the feel of the buttons, way better than my GH5 since it doesn't have that clunky feel and it's so soft to the touch. Video-wise, the GH5 has an edge since it's catered more to videographers, whereas the G9 is mainly for photographers that happened to include amazing video capabilities. I don't really use those other features anyway, like the vlog, so the G9 works for me. Also, this G9, even though it has a 10-minute recording limit when filming in 4K 60p and recording limit of 30 minutes when filming in 24p, it doesn't really bother me at all since I use this for creative shots anyway, and I haven't recorded longer than 60p. So I'm good with that. The sample videos that you're seeing right now were filmed in 24p and 60p, both in 4K, and I have no plans of using the 1080p feature. Also, I shoot in Cine D and will stay that way since I also offer raw footage to my clients for a fee if they wanted to avail of the raw files. And also for my clients to be able to access the MP4 files easily, either on a Mac or PC. Another reason why I'm sticking with my Micro Four Thirds Lumix cameras is because of the lenses. Man, I love the lenses. First and foremost, it's size. That is really important for me since I'm a solo shooter and mostly doing run and gun filming. So weight and being mobile is a big deal. Also, there's a wide variety of lenses to choose from. You can definitely find some old lenses on eBay. Next is the reach of the lenses. It actually doubles the reach of any Micro Four Thirds lenses. Let's say this 12 to 40 millimeter, this one becomes 24 to 80 in full frame equivalent. So for a small Micro Four Thirds lens like this one, it's basically wide enough as well as it can be zoomed and get a tighter shot. Guys, it really gets the job done. Last but not the least is the body isn't too big. And look at this. In my opinion, it's just right. It feels good in my hands. And man, this G9 is amazing. So there you go, guys. Those were the reasons why I chose the Panasonic G9 over the GH5 as my main camera for filming weddings. Right now, as promised, I will show you my settings.
So first and foremost is you have to go to the M button. This one's with the camera beside it. And as you can see, the first tab is the custom, the C button. Now we'll be moving on to the M with the camera. Now you have to set the exposure mode to M, meaning manual. And you can choose between PAS, M, but M for sure is the main setting that I use. So I can control shutter speed and change other settings. So there you go. I'm showing you right now some different settings as well for the exposure. And right now for recording format, we have the MP4, and MP4 is basically, I like to use that because I deliver my raw files as well to my clients, and it's compatible with Mac or PC. And for record quality, I make sure that it's in 4K mode, 100 Mbps in 24p. I like to shoot it that way, and there's no reason for me to go back to 1080p because hands down, 4K is amazing. Way better than 1080p. So the AFF mode, leave it at S because it's for single focusing. And now for the photo style. Cine D is the one that I use here. As you can see, it's set to 0, -2, -5, -5. And the contrast, I didn't touch it. Sharpness is -2, noise reduction is -5, and saturation is -5. So I wanna set it that way. Also Synergy, because I deliver all of my footage when necessary to my clients, and for them to be able to access the footage on a hard drive with the MP4 files easily on a Mac or PC. And it's easier to color grade. I just have to put LUTs, and that's my magic sauce for the wedding videos that I shoot. Next is the filter settings, and I never touch these ones, so leave it at off. And next is the luminance level, and I leave it at 0 to 255 since it's the default. And I get more latitude in there and the most flexibility in editing. So leave it at 0-255. Now for metering mode, I just choose the second one. I just like it. No, there's no actual reason for it. Next is the highlight shadow. I never touch this one. So for highlight, it's set to 0. As well as for the shadow is set to 0, and I just want to mess around with my shots in post. For eye dynamic, it's always off since I have no use for it. I don't want to bake some settings into my footage. As well as the eye resolution, it's always off for me. Now moving on to ISO sensitivity. This is for video. So when you click that, it will show you the lowest and the highest setting, and I put 200 as the lowest, and as for the highest, I always put up to 800. But I never use this since I don't use in auto ISO. I always adjust my ISO manually, and I only go for 1600 as the highest, and the lowest is 250. And shading compensations is always off. Diffraction compensation always off. There's no use for me for all of these. Now stabilizer operation mode, it's always on for me even it's on a gimbal. E-stabilization video is always on, and the IS lock video as well is always on. So I never turn this off anymore, especially when I'm filming handheld without the gimbal. It's so amazing, and I think I would never ever go back and shoot or buy any camera without the IBIS. It's really helpful. Before I normally shoot with monopod, but now I don't. Now moving on, this time around it's a timestamp. Of course, it's off. You only use this if you're using this for investigative reports or videos. And now the mic level display, it's always on, and the adjustment, it's -4 dB. Mic level limiter off, of course. I don't ever turn it on. With noise canceller is off as well. Now let's go to lens noise cut. It's off. For special mic, it's stereo all the time. Sound output in real time. So you can hear whatever you're monitoring right away. And for the info displays, it's on right now because I normally put this with a monitor, and I don't touch it ever. If only I have a monitor, but I normally do this at the studio. Now we have this tab which has the wrench and the C, meaning you can customize it. And you can see here different modes from exposure, focus, operation, monitor display, lens, and inside, let's say for exposure, we have the ISO increments, and I chose 1/3 over 1 EV. Now let's move on to extended ISO, and this one's on. Moving on to exposure metering, and I leave this to 0. I have no use for it. And also for the exposure compensation reset, it's off. And now to AF AE lock, it's always AF-on, so that I can just press the AF AE lock, and it will definitely lock to the subject right away. And now the AF AE lock hold, it's off. Moving on to shutter AF, it's always off. Half press off. And quick AF is off, meaning I don't have to do a quick autofocus here because it's not continuous. I don't do it. I always do a one shot or single shot. And most of the settings right now are basically off, meaning I don't normally use them. I'm just moving on with the settings right now. And you can always pause the video if I'm being too fast. And most of the settings are off anyway, so I just skip some of the settings right now. Again guys, just follow along. Most of the settings that you're seeing right now are by default. Some of them I didn't adjust, some of them I adjusted to my liking, but as you can see, some of these are already set. That's why I'm just showing you all the settings right now, just because. And you can always set all these settings to your liking. Normally what works for me doesn't work for you, so it's really up to you if you want to interchange some of the settings that you're seeing right now. Now let's go to function lever setting, and as you can see here, most of the settings right now are basically by default. I never change them, and it's really up to you to interchange everything here to your needs. But for me, some of the settings here I left unchanged. Now let's go to white balance ISO button, and I chose the while pressing so that I'll be able to change it with one hand, like you see in the example right now. Now for the Q menu, it's on preset and by default. Now let's move on to dial settings. As you can see here, just follow along with the changes in the settings. These are already set to my needs. But the thing that I changed actually was that in the front, as you can see earlier, maybe you've noticed, it's taped because it's the shutter button and I don't want to touch it, so I taped it so that my shutter will remain the same all throughout when I'm filming in 24p. And when I'm filming in 24p, I put my shutter to 50, and if I'm filming 60p, my shutter is 125. 50 because it's the closest to 48, as well as 125 is the closest to 120. You always double your shutter speed. And now the following settings are, again, you just adjust them to your liking. So follow along if you want to copy what my settings are. And now let's move on to peaking, and this is basically on for me because sometimes I shoot with a manual lens, so sometimes my eyes can't see if the subject is in focus, especially if the wedding is outdoors. So peaking really helps. And now moving on to the other settings, especially this one, the histogram. Since I don't want anything showing on my LCD monitor aside from the other important information. Now let's go to zebra pattern. Right now it's off, but I set it to zebra 1 is set to 80 and Zebra 2 is set to 100. But right now it's set to off since I rely more on just the LCD by looking at it, and I find that I can always rely on the LCD itself and it's on point all the time. Alright guys, we're almost done with the settings here, but please bear with me as I'm showing you more of the settings for you to be able to follow along. You can always pause the video and copy my settings as you wish. Alright, so right now we will be going to the wrench tab, and some of the settings right now are by default. Here you can see all of the changes that you can actually set yourself, like the clock, world time, travel date, Wi-Fi, etc. And we're not gonna go to all of them. You can definitely set them to your liking. It doesn't really have to match my settings, but the monitor display speed and the LVF display speed, they're both set to 30 and to 120 respectively. And right now, the only other thing that I wanted to show you guys, if you go to page 4 out of 5, and you can see right here the recording method, and choose the relay rec, wherein if the main card is full, it will go to another card if there's one inserted. And right now, the destination slot is from 1 to 2. Okay, so next is my menu settings and the playback settings. We're not gonna touch this because all of the settings here are still by default. So after you've made your settings on the wrench tab, all you have to do right now is to go to custom setting memory, and you set it to your liking. I choose the C3-1 because it's easier for me to change it to C2, which has my 60p setting. And since I have already saved it, I'm not gonna do it again, but you get the point. All you have to do is to choose yes, and you are good to go. And now let's move on to changing to 60p. And basically I put this on C2, and I'll show it to you right now since it's pretty straightforward. All you have to do is to just change the record quality MP4 to 60p. It'll be on tab video camera, and yeah, that's it. After that, you just go to custom set memory and put it to C2, and you are done.
So what are my final thoughts, guys? Overall, I love this G9 and I won't be replacing it anytime soon. Even though there are already some full-frame Lumix cameras available like the S1H and now the recently released S5. Although I haven't tried any of those yet, but I learned that the S5 is like a GH5S with just a full-frame sensor. Let me tell you guys, this G9 camera, this is basically my workhorse and it's really well built. You know, one time I had a situation that it was raining when I was filming the wedding, and I kept filming and it held up perfectly without any issues at all. So guys, if you're new to the wedding videography scene and looking for a camera that is small enough and lightweight, and of course with a variety of lenses to choose from, definitely I highly recommend this Panasonic G9. It's an amazing camera, most especially on a wedding shoot and filming those creative shots with the couple, partnered with this awesome Olympus Pro 12 to 40 millimeter f2.8 lens. Man, it's a great combo. This lens is stack sharp as well as it's light. So there you go, guys. That was my settings for the Panasonic G9. Please let me know in the comments below as to why you chose the G9 for filming weddings and not any other cameras in the market today. And let me know as well what settings I have missed or I should be using for me to be able to utilize the full potential of this awesome camera. So guys, that's about it. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have stumbled upon this video and you like what you see in this channel, please consider subscribing and you won't regret it for sure. And don't forget to hit that bell notification as well to be notified with amazing videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Goodbye for now.